These leftists will try any argument, will make any excuse to try to equivocate domestic criminals with the influx of foreign criminals. Watch these leftists try to justify the Pakistani groomer gangs. In some sick attempt to equivocate the Pakistani grooming gang phenomenon in Great Britain to the normal levels of white criminality that would be inherent in a society that is at least 70% white, this progressive cuck made a fool of himself and did not do his advocacy for mass migration any favors. Jamie K. Why doesn't the far right ever call out sex offenders who look like these? And the far right answers back. Jamie K wants you to forget about Muslim child blank victims. K must love Muslim child blankists, but not white ones, because the issues of political protection of Muslim blank gangs by labor to protect labor votes from the Muslim community. For decades, K, you really a thick socialist blank to pretend you don't know that. The same way the far left never called out these sex offenders. We do, though. The difference is we're not in denial about their gross existence, and every one of them deserves what they get and more. I don't understand how an apologist for the Muslim blank gangs can identify a difference. Blank is blank regardless of creed or color. They do. We literally have pedo hunters getting them arrested. That's why you have mugshots, you absolute whopper. Now, back to why you or anyone on your side doesn't stand up to the grooming gangs. Oh, you mean how Labor tried to cover up the Pakistani grooming gangs from getting exposed, huh? Labor Party orders destruction of archives that exposed grooming gangs. Ha ha ha, the fact is that as a percentage of racial religious people present in the UK, the Muslims are far more likely to be criminals. 6% of the population, but 18% of prisoners. You want to talk about disproportionality? This will knock your socks off. Grooming gang convictions, 84% Asian, say researchers. Asian, that's a euphemism for Pakistan. British Pakistani, facts for kids. That pun was definitely unintended, but I'll leave it in. Pakistanis only make up 2.5% of the British population. 2.7% of the population committed 84% of the grooming gang offenses. They commit these crimes at 31 times their population share. Pakistani heritage men are roughly 150 times more likely than white British men to be identified or convicted as members of grooming gangs. Over 150 times more likely to be grooming gang offenders than native British. And it would be far higher if the police weren't anti-British, pro-Muslim, and the government police have tried to cover up only the Muslim grooming gangs. And just to remind you, this is in response to Jamie K asking the stupid question, why don't the far right ever call out sex offenders who look like these? Because nobody's covering up for them? Because they don't have 10 cousins from their community they can call to join them in the blank? Because they weren't left to commit crimes for decades to preserve community cohesion? Maybe because their crimes were not covered up by the local communities and authorities. Maybe because their crimes were not racially motivated. Maybe because they don't represent 5% of the population. Maybe because local MPs didn't rely on their votes. So they've all been arrested, yeah? Now what about people that shouldn't even be here who commit blanks? They could have been avoided and you facilitate it. And they continue to facilitate it by making specious, ridiculous arguments like the ones they're making right now. What about the blank gangs that you never call out and that the government covered up based on religious and ethnic grounds? It's you lot who ignore blanks based on race, not us. Same old bullshit, because they are not being systemically protected by the state. They haven't got the government and left wing running cover for them, haven't got the Labor Party in their pocket protecting them while they blank little girls. They actually go to prison where they belong. I wonder why. Here's a graph from England and Wales showing sexual offenses per 10,000. Let's see who's at the top. Let's see who's overrepresented. Afghanistan, Eritrea, Namibia, Chad, Moldova, Sudan, Burma, Congo, Albania, Angola, Somalia, Iraq, Algeria, Tanzania, Morocco. And as evidenced by the data in that graph, this problem is much, much bigger than just the Pakistani demographic in Great Britain. Of course, the few leftists who posted in support of this RAPE apologist posted a fake infographic of random white criminals' mugshots organized in the style of a real infographic showing Pakistani groomer gangs in the cities where they operated. Fake, fake, fake. I asked Grok to summarize the authenticity of this graphic in a very short, brief, and very succinct paragraph. Grok said, "This graphic is a fabricated meme that compiles unrelated mugshots from various sources and falsely presents them as evidence of large-scale grooming gangs across UK locations like Cornwall, Huddersfield, and Stoke, and others. It's a digitally manipulated hoax designed to exaggerate and mislead in online debates." And other leftist RAPE apologists tried some whataboutisms, claiming that because there were PDF files involved with the English Defense League, this somehow invalidates the fact that, despite only making up 2.7% of the British population, Pakistanis made up 84% of grooming gang offenders. Then there's the fact that, according to a widely cited 2011 study by researchers Jamie Bartlett and Mark Littler, published via Demos, estimated 25,000 to 35,000 active members, supporters in the EDL movement. So the fact that there is 109 out of 35,000 isn't exactly the own that you think it is, leftist. This is how sick you people are. Instead of dealing with the fact that Pakistani men comprise 84% of groomer gang suspects, while Pakistanis only comprise 2.7% of the British population, you sick bastards won't stop with these whataboutisms. Man, it is incredible to me how these leftists will talk about anything else but the matter at hand. They do not want to address this reality. These are foreign men who are guests in your country, and they are targeting your fucking daughters. Holy shit, this is dark. You leftists will not address the fact that you were used and abused by these men like they used and abused your daughters. These leftists remind me of an abused woman making excuse after excuse for her abusive husband. I'll re-ask his question again. Jamie K., why don't the far right ever call out sex offenders who look like these? Well, Jamie, to put it as simply as I can, and to wrap this up, you RAPE apologist, the reason the far right doesn't focus on homegrown them's PDF files is because we needlessly imported thousands of foreign ones who had no business being here in the first place. First of all. Second of all, they are guests in your country. They don't get to just commit crimes willy-nilly and expect the same tolerance that there is for domestic criminals. Every country has domestic criminals. When you migrate to another country and start committing horrendous atrocities, it kind of angers the locals a little bit. Third of all, let's put the shoe on the other foot. How would Pakistanis react if there was thousands of Englishmen grooming, blanking their daughters in Pakistan? Yeah, I don't think it would last a week. Fourth of all, these Pakistani and Islamic perpetrators are targeting little innocent English white girls because of their race. They say so themselves.
White girls were viewed, as I say, just as a piece of meat, as though where they're just a sex object that, you know, they can do anything towards us, that we deserve it. There's no respect there. They don't view us as people.
There are hundreds of hours of victim testimony attesting to that fact.
Grooming gang survivor calls what happened to her anti-Western religious and racist abuse. When I was a victim, I was raped multiple times, I was beaten, I was tortured, and throughout all of that I was constantly being racially abused. There was a constant barrage of, you're a white slag, you're a white whore, you're a fucking gory, which is the Pakistani word for white person. So the racist abuse was non-stop. The religious abuse is real. I was taught it as a type of othering, like our Pakistani girls are good and pure and they cover themselves, they're virgins till they're married, but white girls are trash, they're whores, they all sleep with hundreds of men, they're all worthless. I don't think it's good to hide this information.